A simple beginning. Nathan was an ordinary young man living in the small town of Willowbrook. It was a peaceful place surrounded by endless fields and quiet country roads. Everyone in Willowbrook knew each other, sharing friendly waves and morning greetings. The old church bell rang every hour, marking time in a predictable rhythm. Children played hide and seek in the open meadows until the sun slipped down. Elders gathered at the local diner, telling stories of days long gone. Nathan's family owned a small bakery that had served generations of townsfolk. The smell of fresh bread and pies drifted through the narrow main street. Life in Willowbrook was simple, safe, and beautifully slow for most residents. But for Nathan, something deep inside always whispered there was more waiting. While his friends dreamed of farms, shops, and inheriting their family businesses someday, Nathan imagined ancient castles, vast deserts, stormy seas, and cities glowing at night. At night, lying on the grass behind the bakery, he stared at stars. He loved reading about explorers, adventurers, and travelers who crossed dangerous, unknown lands. His favorite story was about a man who sailed around the entire world. That book, worn and missing pages, belonged to his grandfather, long gone now. Nathan kept it close, reading each fading page again and again by candlelight. In its margins, his grandfather scribbled notes of places he wished to see. Nathan promised himself he wouldn't grow old in Willowbrook with only dreams remaining. He would someday follow the path his grandfather had only imagined from afar. His mother often said, "The world out there isn't made for folks like us." And his father believed a man's duty was to build a family legacy. But Nathan's heart ached every time a train passed through town heading westward. He imagined distant cities, mountain ranges, foreign languages, and sunsets over unfamiliar horizons. It wasn't that Nathan hated his town, his home, or the people there. He simply felt the invisible pull of the unknown, stronger than any comfort. Some nights he'd climb to the bakery's rooftop, lying beneath endless dark skies. He'd trace constellations with his finger, naming them after places he longed to visit. He imagined standing at the edge of ancient ruins buried in golden sands. He saw himself on crowded streets filled with strange music and exotic spices. In those quiet moments, Nathan promised he'd find a way to leave someday. The call to adventure. The opportunity arrived on an evening far more ordinary than one might expect. Nathan was closing the bakery alone, sweeping flour from the worn wooden floors. A letter lay unnoticed among bills and advertisements by the rusted shop mailbox. It was addressed in elegant handwriting, sealed with a mark he didn't recognize. Curious, Nathan tore it open and unfolded the heavy parchment paper inside carefully. His eyes scanned the words once, then twice, his hands beginning to tremble. It was a letter from a respected university in a distant, bustling coastal city. They'd read one of Nathan's essays about ancient trade routes submitted months before anonymously. A scholarship was offered for history, language studies, and international cultural exchanges beginning that fall. Nathan's heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the clock strike midnight nearby. This wasn't just a scholarship, it was the exact chance he'd always craved. A way out of Willowbrook and into a world he'd only seen in books. But it wasn't as easy as dropping everything and leaving without a trace. When he told his mother, tears filled her eyes though she tried to smile. His father was silent for a long moment before quietly returning to his work. His best friend Thomas laughed awkwardly, trying to mask his sadness with empty jokes. Most in Willowbrook thought leaving was reckless, a foolish waste of a good future. They warned him of crime, strange diseases, dangerous people, and the coldness of city life. Some even called it selfish to abandon family, tradition, and a steady place here. But Nathan had made his decision long before that letter ever arrived by post. He packed a worn leather backpack, his grandfather's book, and a notebook of blank pages. At dawn, he boarded the westbound train, watching Willowbrook's silhouette shrink into the distance. As fields turned into highways and highways into skyscrapers, his pulse quickened with excitement. For the first time in his life, Nathan wasn't watching the world from afar. He was inside it, moving forward, destination unknown, a story beginning under his feet. The world beyond. The city was 1,000 times larger, louder, and brighter than he imagined. Glass towers reflected the sun like enormous mirrors, crowds moved in constant hurried waves. Signs flashed in languages Nathan had never seen, and scents filled every narrow street. University life was exhilarating, confusing, and exhausting all at once for the small-town boy. His classmates hailed from every corner of the world, each carrying their own stories. He met Sophia from Brazil, Eli from Kenya, May from Hong Kong, and Luca from Croatia. Each of them had left homes, families, and safe lives to chase uncertain futures. Late nights were spent in cafes discussing lost empires, forgotten languages, and heroic legends. They traded stories of childhood adventures, favorite meals, and the words for hope in dozens of tongues. Classes were intense. Thick books, ancient scripts, and passionate professors with wild, brilliant minds. Nathan found himself drawn especially to the languages course, decoding symbols from vanished civilizations. He wrote long letters home, though he rarely received more than brief replies in return. There were nights loneliness settled in like fog, wrapping him in heavy, silent doubt. He missed his mother's apple pies, quiet evenings on the bakery's back steps, Thomas's jokes. Sometimes the city felt too fast, too cold, and far too indifferent to his struggles. Whenever the ache for home threatened to overwhelm him, Nathan opened his grandfather's old book. Inside its pages were memories of places both real and imagined, and notes of dreams. He'd run his fingers over the faded words, finding strength in the echoes of adventure. Each entry reminded him of the promise he'd made to the stars above Willowbrook. That he would chase stories, walk paths unknown, and carry his family's legacy outward. Months turned into seasons, seasons into years, and Nathan's world grew wider with every step. He spent summers translating crumbling scrolls in desert monasteries and winters studying texts in Istanbul. He hiked misty mountains in Peru, stood beneath cherry blossoms in Kyoto, and sailed Mediterranean waters. With each new place, Nathan left a piece of himself behind and carried new wisdom. The boy from Willowbrook became a storyteller, a historian, a translator of forgotten human histories. And though the world was vast and filled with endless wonders yet to be found, every path Nathan walked always led him, in quiet moments, back to himself. He had chased the unknown not to escape Willowbrook, but to truly understand it. For it was in distant cities and ancient ruins he finally saw his home. A place not defined by narrow streets or old traditions, but by the dreams within. One night, years after first boarding that train, Nathan stood alone atop a seaside cliff. He looked out at an endless horizon, stars scattered above like forgotten stories waiting. And in that moment, he promised he would never stop moving, never stop seeking more. Because somewhere in the world, another young dreamer was staring up at the same stars. And Nathan's story would be the light leading them toward their own grand adventure.